The Ethiopian Bible describes the lands beyond the wall of cold and the humans kept there. There is a passage in the Ethiopian Bible that most scholars refuse to discuss in print, not because it is obscure, not because it is fragmentary or poorly preserved. The Ge'ez manuscript that contains it has sat inside the Church of Our Lady Mary of Zion in Axum for over 4 centuries, intact, copied by hand from an even older source, its text verifiable against the Aramaic fragments recovered at Qumran in 1947. The passage is there. It has been there. And what it describes has no equivalent anywhere in the standard biblical canon that Rome decided you should read. The passage describes a place, not a metaphorical place, not a spiritual realm with vague contours and poetic geography, a place with terrain features, a direction of travel, a wall made of a specific material, a temperature that the text records as unlike any cold a living person should encounter, and beyond that wall, human beings, not dead souls, not spirits awaiting judgment, human beings, physically present, kept there. The Ge'ez word the text uses is the word for the held, the ones placed somewhere by deliberate decision and left. The Council of Laodicea voted the Book of Enoch out of the Bible in 364 CE. They called it dangerous. For 17 centuries it stayed banned, buried, classified as too volatile for Christian teaching. Then in 1947, the Dead Sea Scrolls surfaced at Qumran, and 11 separate copies of Enoch came with them. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church had kept the complete text in their canon. Their Ge'ez manuscripts contain passages that Western editions shortened, softened, or removed entirely. The passage about the Wall of Cold is one of those passages. And before we go further, I need to pause for a second, because what I'm about to tell you gets significantly darker. And I realized a while ago that some of this cannot be fully explained in a video format. The complete reconstruction of the lands beyond the wall, the full geographic catalog, Enoch records, the names and categories of the beings held there, the written account word for word from the Ge'ez manuscript as Dr. Ephraim Isaac translated it for Oxford in 1983. I put it all into a written document. It's linked below, and the QR code is on your screen. Now, let's continue. The text comes from the Book of the Luminaries, the astronomical section of Enoch, chapters 72 through 82. Fragment 4, Q209, at the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, contains Aramaic text from chapter 76, dated by carbon analysis to approximately 100 BCE. It predates every gospel. It predates most of the New Testament. And chapter 76 is where the geography begins. Dr. Michael Knibb, whose 1978 Oxford edition remains the standard scholarly reference for Enochic studies, identified the astronomical section as containing the most specific directional language in any ancient Jewish text. The text does not say toward the north. It describes a journey with stages, terrain transitions, temperature changes, and a final boundary. Knibb noted the precision in these chapters was inconsistent with the symbolic cosmology of other apocalyptic literature. Chapter 76 opens with Enoch being carried by the angel Uriel to the ends of the earth. The Ge'ez phrase is Makdem Agar, the limit of the ground, not the edge of the world in a flat earth sense, but the limit of habitable terrain. Uriel takes Enoch north and west, past the Great Sea, past the gates through which the sun does not pass, and then to something the text identifies as the Wall of Cold. The Ge'ez term is Seke Beredo, cold of hail, ice compressed and hardened beyond what hail becomes when it falls. The text specifies the wall is not made of stone. It's made of the cold itself, solidified, standing as a boundary between the known world and what lies beyond it. Enoch writes that the cold he felt when Uriel brought him to its face used the phrase Beredo Ziakono, cold without a name, cold that has no human word adequate to describe it, because no human should be in the place where that cold exists. The Axum manuscript adds one physical detail Western editions omit. The wall does not taper at any point. It is the same height at every position, Enoch observed, as if built to a fixed specification. And beyond it, there are people. Chapter 77. 1 inch, the Ge'ez manuscript at Axum reads, in Dr. Ephraim Isaac's 1983 Oxford translation. And I saw beyond the wall those who dwell in the place of the gathered cold. And they were of the sons of men, but they were not as men that walk beneath the sun. They were held in the darkness beyond the wall by the judgment of the holy ones, and they shall remain until the age is completed. Sons of men, not Nephilim, not giants, not watchers or fallen angels, sons of men, human beings, placed beyond a wall of ice at the far northern extremity of creation, held there by divine judgment, and kept until the completion of the age. The text does not explain it in chapter 77 alone, but Enoch is not a single document, it is a library, and the answer is distributed across that library in pieces, in cross-references, in passages that only make sense read alongside each other. The Ethiopian Bible contains the complete library. The Western canon discarded most of it. The pieces that explain why those humans are beyond the wall are precisely the pieces the Council of Laodicea found most dangerous. Chapter 10 records God's instruction to the archangel Michael. Bind Azazel hand and foot, cast him into the darkness in the place named as Dudail. Then in verse 9, God instructs Michael to destroy the children of the Watchers, the hybrid offspring of the union between fallen angels and human women. Destroy all the souls of lust and the children of the Watchers, surface beings. All of them destroyed. The Jay's manuscript contains a verse. R. H. Charles's 1906 translation renders so briefly it is almost invisible. Chapter 10:21 specifies that among the human women who joined with the Watchers, there was a class who did not act under compulsion. The women who chose, who participated willingly in the corruption of the first age, receive a sentence neither the destruction given to the Nephilim nor the imprisonment given to the fallen Watchers. They are sent north, to the place beyond the wall of cold, to be held. Before we move on to the next passage, stop for a second. What you just heard about the human inhabitants beyond the wall is the part that changes everything, but it only makes sense when you see it written out next to the original Jez passage. The sentence structure, the classification, it's all in the document linked below. Take 5 seconds right now, grab it, and then come back, because what comes next builds directly on it. The link is in the description. QR code is on your screen. The Babylonian parallel to this structure is not incidental, it is precise, and it arrives from a clay tablet sitting in the British Museum collection since 1876, catalogued as BM 92687, part of the Nineveh Library tablets recovered from the palace of Ashurbanipal. The tablet is from the Gilgamesh cycle, from a fragment scholars call the Distant Lands tablet, a geographical text describing the regions beyond the known world. The British Museum acquired it along with tens of thousands of cuneiform tablets in the 19th century. Andrew George, whose 2003 Critical Gilgamesh edition remains the definitive scholarly text, noted that BM 92687 contains directional language with no equivalent in known Mesopotamian cosmology. The text calls this boundary the Wall of Anum, the Wall of the Sky God, placed at the northern limit of the habitable world. Beyond it are those who transgress the boundary between what was given to men and what was not. The parallel to Enoch's Wall of Cold is structural. In both traditions, a northern boundary exists at the limit of the habitable world. In both, something transgressed a boundary between the human and the divine. In both, the transgressors are placed beyond the wall and held there. Enoch uses the word for human beings. The Gilgamesh fragment uses a compound Sumerian term Andrew George renders as those of human form but not of human standing. In 1971, Dr. Jean-Philippe Lauer was excavating a sealed subsidiary chamber beneath the Saqqara necropolis when his team uncovered a limestone block that has not been on public display since 1973. The Cairo Museum catalogued it as JE89289, carved on one face with a hieroglyphic register that no subsequent published study has comprehensively addressed. The compound hieroglyphic designation labels the depicted beings as those who came before the counting of years. In Old Kingdom hieroglyphic convention, that grammatical construction is not metaphorical. It is a categorical designation for a specific class of being. The Egyptians were precise about categories, with different words for gods, spirits, divine intermediaries, the honored dead, human officials, foreign peoples. This compound glyph creates a new category for beings that predate the dynastic calendar, that the Egyptians apparently felt required carving onto a stone block they then sealed underground. What the block depicts is a directionality. The figures carved on JE89289 are oriented north. Not north as a ritual convention in Egyptian funerary art, where east is the direction of resurrection and west is the direction of the dead. Specifically north, the hieroglyphic text beside the figures uses a verb form, Egyptologist, doctor. John Coleman Darnell of Yale University translated as installed there, not sent, not journeying, installed, a placement with the quality of permanence. The northern placement of beings who predate dynastic order, installed permanently, the parallel to Enoch's Wall of Cold is sitting on the same block, carved by a civilization with no contact with ancient Ethiopia, no known awareness of the Enochic textual tradition, and no reason to describe the same geography unless both traditions were drawing from something older than either of them. Chapter 77 does not only tell us that the humans beyond the wall are held there, it tells us something about the conditions of their holding. The Ge'ez text specifies that those beyond the wall do not age in the same manner as those beneath the sun. The Axum manuscript uses the phrase, Ye temer bientiahu, which Isaac renders as their time is not counted in the same way. The text does not say they are immortal. It says the mechanism by which time marks itself on a body does not operate the same way it operates in the world of sun and seasons. The wall of cold is not just a geographic boundary, it is a temporal one. This is not unique to Enoch. The Babylonian Distant Lands tablet BM 92687 contains a cognate concept. The Sumerian compound Andrew George identifies as those of human form but not of human standing includes a secondary descriptor he renders as those for whom the sun does not count. The held beings beyond the northern wall exist in a region where that counting does not apply to them. The Gilgamesh epic's main narrative cross-references directly to the geographical fragment. In a detail most popular accounts omit Gilgamesh, on his journey passes through a region where he encounters beings who do not age, who stand outside normal human time. He asks the scorpion beings who guard the mountain entrance what lies beyond. Their answer in George's translation, beyond the darkness is the cold. Beyond the cold are those who were placed there when the world was young. They will remain until the world is old. Chapter 77, in the Axum Ge'ez manuscript, places the wall of cold at the seventh gate of the north wind. The Book of the Luminaries describes 12 gates for the winds, 3 on each side of the world. The seventh gate is the one from which the north wind that brings snow and frost emerges, positioned at the extreme northern quarter of the earth, at the point where the sun's light does not reach for extended periods. A real north, a real cold, a real boundary. Chapter 77, 3 inches the Axum text says the wall has no break in it, no gate for passage, no door. It is continuous. The only way to reach what is beyond it is to be taken there, carried by an angel, as Enoch was carried to the ocean floor prison in chapters 17 and 18. No human journey on foot reaches it, no ship navigates to it. The access to what is held beyond was permanently severed at the moment of placement. The Church's cosmology placed punishment in a spiritual abyss, vague, untestable, accessible only through death. Enoch placed human beings in a physical location at the north of the earth, held by a wall of cold, exempt from normal time, accessible in principle to anyone who could travel far enough north. That is a claim about the physical world. A claim that could, in theory, be investigated. A claim that could be confirmed or contradicted by exploration. Jerome, compiling the Latin Vulgate around 400 CE, wrote that Enoch describes places of punishment accessible to measurement, calling this a theological error. He did not dispute that certain beings had been punished. He disputed that their place of punishment could be located. Augustine, in the City of God, around 410 CE, argued the great northern prison described in Enoch was borrowed pagan cosmology. He was writing about a text he had not fully read from manuscripts he did not have access to. The Ethiopian Church had access to the full text. They preserved it. The complete Ge'ez version contains a passage in chapter 77 that Augustine and Jerome never encountered, a passage Western scholars only gained access to when James Bruce brought 3 Ge'ez manuscripts to Europe in 1773, which Oxford scholars read with visible alarm. The passage describes Enoch asking Uriel how long those beyond the wall will remain. Uriel's answer in the Axum manuscript, in Isaac's translation, until the one whose name was spoken before the sun and the stars completes what was promised. The text uses a construction Isaac identifies as a messianic reference, the same phrasing used in the parables of Enoch to describe the Son of Man figure whose arrival signals the end of the current age. The humans beyond the wall of cold are held until the return of the Son of Man. Oxford scholars in 1821 called the passage irreconcilable with Mosaic cosmology. The specific problem was not the existence of a messianic figure. The problem was the implication that a class of human beings had existed since before the dynastic period, placed beyond a wall in the far north, outside normal time, still existing, still waiting, still physically present in a specific location, held there until an event that had not yet happened. That is not a comfortable claim for any institutional religion to accommodate. It implies that beyond the northern boundary of the known world, there is a population that fell before the flood, survived by placement rather than by the ark, and has been held in their frozen installation for millennia while the world below the sun cycled through its empires and theologies. The Babylonian record does not contradict this. It specifies that the beings in the distant lands are to remain there until the sky god reclaims what was taken. The Sumerian cosmological framework uses different names than the Enochic one, but the structure is identical. A pre-flood category of human beings, separated by transgression, placed at the northern boundary of the world, scheduled for release at a specific cosmic moment. The Egyptian block JE 89289 does not offer a duration. It offers a designation and a directionality. Ground-penetrating radar surveys by the Scan Pyramids Consortium in 2018 identified at least 3 sealed subsurface chambers beneath the Saqqara pre-dynastic complex whose dimensions are inconsistent with known architectural features. The Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities classified those chambers as structurally sensitive. Excavation permits have not been issued. The assessment has been pending since 2018. Beneath the oldest stone complex on Earth, in chambers radar confirms exist and no excavation team is opened, the physical record of what those pre-dynastic builders preserved is still there, sealed, categorized as pending, waiting. Chapter 82 of the Book of the Luminaries returns to this geography with a detail most Western readers have never encountered. The Aksum Ge'ez manuscript contains a passage in 82-4 that R.H. Charles's 1906 edition renders as a single sentence about the winds and their paths. The full Ge'ez text, as Isaac noted in a private correspondence archived at the University of Manchester, contains an additional clause Charles omitted without explanation. The additional clause says that among the gates of the north wind, the 7th gate is sealed on both sides. Not gated, not guarded, sealed. The same word the text uses in chapter 10 for the sealing of Azazel's prison beneath the desert, the same word used in chapter 18 for the ocean floor prison door. The 7th gate of the north wind is sealed with the same permanence applied to the other great prisons of the Enochic universe. The ocean floor prison contains fallen angels. The desert prison contains leaders of the rebellion. What is beyond the wall of cold is different from both. Those are beings whose nature required the architecture of ice and fire to contain them. What is beyond the 7th gate of the north wind is human. And the text, in the passage Charles removed, gives a reason for that difference. Fallen angels are sealed with fire and stone because they cannot simply end. They must be held. But the humans beyond the wall of cold are held not because they cannot end, but because their ending must be witnessed. Their judgment is public. Their release and sentencing are events that the completion of history requires. They are being preserved for something. The purpose of the keeping is not punishment alone. It is witness. The Ge'ez word Isaac uses in his 1983 translation is mesker, which he renders as testimony, but which in the Ethiopian Orthodox liturgical tradition carries the specific sense of evidence, preserved for presentation at trial. A mesker is preserved evidence, a piece of reality that must remain intact until the court convenes. The humans beyond the wall of cold are not being punished in the conventional sense. They are being preserved, kept in a state outside normal temporal decay so that at the moment of final judgment, what they chose, what they participated in, what they became, can be present in court. Their existence is documentation. The wall of cold is an archive. This is what the Council of Laodicea voted to exclude in 364 CE. Not merely uncomfortable cosmology. The framework in which a class of human beings, categorically distinct from the dead and from fallen angels, exists in a preserved physical state in the far north of the world, waiting to be presented as evidence at a judgment that ends the current age of creation. When you read the 3 traditions together, the Ge'ez Enochic manuscripts from Aksum, Babylonian Distant Lands Tablet BM 92687 from the British Museum, and the pre-dynastic Egyptian hieroglyphic register on limestone block JE 89289 in the Cairo Museum basement, the convergence is not interpretive. The geography is the same. The directionality is the same. The category of being is the same. The temporal exemption from normal aging is the same. The expected duration, until the end of the age, is the same. 3 traditions without known contact with one another, preserving the same record. The simplest explanation is not shared mythology about the North. Northern mythologies describe monsters, cold spirits, realms of the dead. They do not describe a specific class of human beings placed beyond a specific wall by a specific judgment, preserved outside normal time, designated as mesker, awaiting a specific event. What the 3 traditions share is a description, not a symbol. The Book of the Luminaries in the complete Aksum Ge'ez text. The 7th gate of the north wind sealed on both sides. The beings beyond the wall, exempt from the sun's counting, installed before the first dynasty began counting its years. The Babylonian Distant Lands Tablets Wall of Anum, those for whom the sun does not count. JE 89289. Pre-dynastic ceremonial relief. Provenance uncertain. No dedicated iconographic study published since 1973. The manuscripts sit in Axum behind church walls and government restriction after Ethiopia's 1974 revolution classified church archives as national cultural property. Dr. James Vanderkam, of the University of Notre Dame, had access requests denied in 1988 and again in 1997. He stated in Biblical Archaeology Review that at least 3 passages are known through secondary references but unavailable for direct examination in over 50 years. Those passages are among the most geographically specific in the Enochic corpus. Fragment 4Q209 at the Israel Museum contains Aramaic text from the Book of the Luminaries, enough to confirm the Ge'ez text's directional framework. But the Aramaic fragment is incomplete. The Ge'ez manuscript at Axum holds the full text. And the full text has been behind locked doors since the Derg came to power. The sealed chambers beneath Saqqara are still sealed. The full radar data from the Scan Pyramids survey has not been released. In Andrew George's 2003 critical Gilgamesh edition, his footnote on BM 92687 reads, "The geographical section of this tablet merits independent study, but falls outside the scope of the present work. The independent study has not been published. What all of this amounts to is a distributed record. No single institution holds all of it. The Ethiopian Church holds the most complete textual version. The British Museum holds the cuneiform fragment. The Cairo Museum basement holds the carved limestone. The Israel Museum holds the Aramaic Dead Sea fragment. The French National Archives hold Lauer's field notes. Each piece is partial. Each is in a different jurisdiction. Each is subject to different access restrictions. A wall. A cold beyond naming. Human beings placed there before the counting of years began. Held outside normal time. Preserved as evidence. Scheduled for a judgment that ends the age." The Axum manuscript's final reference to the beings beyond the wall of cold comes in chapter 82, in the passage Charles removed. After the clause about the 7th gate being sealed on both sides, the text adds a single sentence that Isaac renders as follows, "And when the seal is opened, those within will know before those without, because they have been watching from where the watching does not end." The wall is sealed from both sides. Whatever is beyond it is not trying to get out. The watching described in that sentence is not watching for an opportunity. It is watching in the way a witness watches, attentively, patiently, recording, waiting for the moment when testimony is required. They have been watching from where the watching does not end. That sentence was written in Ge'ez, copied from an older text. Preserved in a locked church in northern Ethiopia. Removed from the version the Council of Laodicea approved for Christian circulation. Unavailable for direct scholarly examination since 1974. Sitting with all the other pieces of this record, distributed across museum basements and national archives, waiting for someone to ask what the text will not stop raising. What is on the other side of the wall of cold? And how long have they been watching? The Ge'ez manuscript knows. The limestone block at the Cairo Museum knows. The cuneiform fragment in the British Museum knows. They have all been saying it, in 3 different languages, across 3 civilizations, for longer than any institution that currently holds the key to their translation has existed. The manuscripts remain. The chambers remain, the wall remains, and whatever was placed beyond it was placed there to remain until the age is completed. The record is there. It has always been there. The only thing that changes is whether you are willing to read all of it.